is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. As the headline says, a mysterious liquid falling from the sky in Las Vegas, and no one knows why. Wait. I know why. I know what it is, and I'll show you in a second. And I think all of you already know. As you'll see, these spots that look a lot like they're darker, they're like the color black, almost like a gooey-like liquid falling from the sky. And again, they've openly admitted to cloud seeding in these things. I've covered videos before where they've talked about weather manipulation, creating rain through nanoparticles and magnetism. And, still we're not able to figure this out. I mean, what? They openly admit to it, right? I mean, they're even admitting to cloud seeding now. They're not even hiding it, which I'll show you in a few minutes as well. But this mysterious liquid's falling from the sky. So people are looking up. It's falling from the sky. One guy's really concerned that it's really damaging his cars, and he's got to clean it off his car, so he's concerned about that. But he should be a lot more concerned about what's falling from the skies in relation to it touching and getting on his body and in his skin than he should be about his cars. Let's take a look at what's going on in Las Vegas.
Well, rain is not very common in the valley, but these droplets falling in the northeast are something else entirely.
Yeah, apparently it's a dark-colored liquid that's kind of oily to the touch, falling from the sky and covering a neighborhood near Charleston and Hollywood. Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm Dave Crevassier.
And I'm Trisha Keene. Well, people living in the area say they have no idea where the drops are coming from. 13 Action News reporter Sean Delancey spent the day trying to get answers. Sean.
People here in the eastern part of the valley are completely perplexed over these brown, black, almost oily-looking droplets that are falling from the sky. They're everywhere. They're over all of these cars. They're over an RV in the back of the lot. They're all over this basketball court. The big question is, what are they, and why are they falling from the sky? Helicopters through here. Marco Cervantes is at war with, well, something.
See on the floor?
Something that's been falling from somewhere.
It could also be grease, oil, I don't know.
Here, there, everywhere. Thousands of little black and brown droplets have rained on Cervantes' property consistently, he says, for the last 3 to 4 weeks.
It's very hard for me to maintain my vehicles. It's very, very difficult to be outside of my yard, knowing that you can't even cook a barbecue or anything like that when you get droppings on your food.
Neighbors all refused an on-camera interview, but each and every one said they've experienced the same thing with no explanation. Cervantes questioned whether the droplets could have come from planes.
So they would come straight this way and swing that way.
Out of a mountain range?
Correct.
But he says contacting the FAA has yielded no answers. Cervantes worries that the substance could be toxic or harmful and wants answers.
I would like somebody to take action and help me determine what this is and obviously figure out a solution.
We've reached out to the FAA, the Nevada Department of Conservation, and the State Division of Environmental Protection to get an explanation for this, and as of right now, we haven't heard back. Sean Delancey, 13 Action News.
I guess it gives new meaning to the term leaving Las Vegas, but there's really no escape from this because this is something that they've been doing. They're not hiding that they're doing it. In fact, they'll tell you that they're doing it, and it's a form of weather modification technology and cloud seeding technology. And, remember I've showed you guys, people who've been posting videos online for quite a while, going to their car and looking at their car, thinking for a second that, something just pollen flew around and their car was covered in pollen, and then they take a magnet to it and they see that it's moving with the magnetism as they move the magnet across the car.
Look at this. From the fucking rain. Check this out. I'll show you now. They're spraying us like bugs. I have some magnet. Look at this. Let me show you. See? See? Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Sorry about that. Look at this.
Right, so these are things that obviously, Not hard to figure out what's going on here. So people in eastern Las Vegas neighborhood near Hollywood Boulevard have been completely perplexed for weeks as mysterious brown or black droplets have fallen on their properties. And by the way, if you read the comment section below the video, there are people comment on it. They're like, get samples of it and send it in to the police, or send it to the FBI, or send it to science labs, I should say. They didn't say send it to the FBI. The FBI would be like, yeah, your point. Who do you think's putting it up there? Or the CIA, I should say. They're saying, get a sample of it and send it to Bill Nye and send it to scientists out there. I mean, the fact that people aren't aware that they're doing this, we've been yelling about this stuff for years with geoengineering. Hello, hi. They still are just like, something mysterious is falling from the sky. People are looking at it and saying it's all sorts of different types of things possibly, and of course they're not mentioning anything about nanotechnology and graphene, because why would they? Because these are the types of videos and content that get suppressed, even though they don't hide that this is the type of technology they're using. One person says it could be grease or oil. Yikes. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what they're putting in the water in Las Vegas that somebody would think it was grease or oil falling from the sky. But maybe they're putting a little bit of that in the water too, along with the fluoride. So it's very hard to maintain my vehicles, as you heard the guy say. It's very difficult to be outside of my backyard knowing that I can't even cook or barbecue or anything like that because of droplets on my food. Well, that is correct, but hate to warn you, it's already droplets of that probably on your food. Or I should say definitely on your food. And of course, neighbors in the area declined interviews, but they said they've experienced the same thing with no explanation. That's because they're afraid, because they probably know Big Brother's behind it. So then we have technology like this out in the open, where they don't hide that they have this type of technology, which makes you just want to pull your hair out, because people still say we're crazy conspiracy nuts, yet the government's openly admitting to having technology like this to create rain and snow and things like that. And people just don't go, well, how come when there's actual wildfires, they don't use this type of technology to put out the fires? Oh, because they start the fires on purpose. They don't want to put them out for lots of reasons. And when they start these storms, all they want to do is cause chaos and destruction like they do down in Florida, Texas, Louisiana, because, that's how you depop and that's how you take over people's land and run them out of their land without getting caught. Because, people won't believe that they would use weather and manipulate it, even though JFK and many of these politicians have admitted it for a long time.
We're here in Santa Barbara County, home to one of the longest-running cloud seeding operations in the country. Cloud seeding is the most common type of weather modification, and it has many different techniques and applications. Today, it's mostly used to increase rain and snowfall, reduce the size of hail, and reduce fog at airports.
Traditionally, cloud seeding has been done from the air. So airplanes have had racks on them where these same flares are positioned on the airplane, and the airplane flies into the storm. So in order to reduce the cost to the client and reduce our carbon footprint, we've been able to station these on the ground. Now, we can do this in places where weather permits.
Behind a barbed wire fence designed to keep away curious cattle, the cloud seeding gear awaits the right kind of weather.
So these are referred to as AHOGs. That stands for Automated High Output Ground Seeding Systems. We've got three primary components of our equipment here. The first is the control module that you see behind me. Then we have our actual cloud seeding flares. The cameras for security. It also helps us observe weather conditions in real time and make sure that all of the equipment is operating correctly during a storm. Inside these canisters are the flares with the seeding agents. The canisters are used as spark arresters, so they prevent sparks from reaching the ground. So we pull off the spark arrestor, you can see the flare inside. The ignition of the flares are controlled from the control module that's behind us. So the white triangle there is the cell service modem, and then the solar panel keeps us powered. Inside we have a battery and then a control board. So the control board interacts with the software. We're linked or synced with the software in Utah currently, and that allows us to fire or ignite any of the flares from that remote location.
Because of the lack of clouds and proper wind conditions, today is not a good day for cloud seeding at all. But Garrett and his team are going to light a flare for us anyway, so we can show you how it works. There's just one small problem. The battery in the control module died shortly before we arrived, but it's nothing a little jump start can't fix. After a little juice from Garrett's truck, it's time to set off the flare.
The primary seeding agent in this is silver iodide. Silver iodide is a simple compound. It's polar in nature like water, so there's chemical properties that help attract water molecules to silver iodide. It's also structured molecularly similar to ice. So it helps generate or helps spawn the generation of ice buildup, and then that becomes a hailstone or a snowflake that falls here primarily as rain. So one flare like this has billions and billions of potential sites for that water to congregate around. We'll launch them in sequences. We watch the radar to see when bands of the highest concentration of liquid water are passing above us in the clouds, and we try to target those high concentration pockets in the storm systems. We'll launch between 3 and 20 flares for a typical storm. Once the flare is lit, it takes a little bit of time to carry up into the clouds, and once it's up at the proper elevation, it'll take about 20 minutes to instigate the rain or the snow process. So overall, you're probably looking at about 40 to 45 minutes before you're seeing the maximum result. And that's why we're stationed miles away from our target area. So we have very specific targets that drain directly into major water basins, and we time these events to correlate with rain above those intended targets. One of the biggest questions or most common questions that we receive relates to the safety of silver iodide. Silver is biologically inert, so it will not interact in a negative fashion with plant or animal life. Iodine is actually a critical building block of a number of hormones in animals, so it is safe as well. In fact, if you look at table salt or baby formula, you'll see iodine in its molecular form as an additive in those commonly consumed substances.
Well, what about other potential adverse effects? Could cloud seeding affect communities outside the targeted areas?
Sometimes there is a concern about robbing Peter to pay Paul. So are we benefiting California at the expense of Nevada? And the truth is that storm systems, when they move over off the coastline, only about 10% of that moisture is going to fall in the form of precip. And we're looking at increasing that to about 11%.
So that's the type of technology, you can only, I don't even want to say laugh at it because it's frightening. But they're using nanoparticles to power up storms. Like I said, you might remember the video I did where in Dubai they were literally, hey, we're using this type of technology now to create storms, and the newscasters are like literally like, oh, this is really creepy, but it's really great, right? And instead of going, well, if they have this type of technology, then why don't they use it for good? Why don't they actually use it when there's massive forest fires? Why are they using? I mean, just no one asks any questions. Nobody uses critical thinking. Nobody has a brain in their heads as to why they would have this type of technology, because you would think they would have it to prevent some of the tragic weather catastrophes that have occurred. But in reality, they've created the weather catastrophes that have occurred, and they're continuing to do it, just like you saw in the video clip. Oh, we're attaching it to a plane, yet we're all nuts, right, for years. And then the people who said we're nuts don't go, oh, my bad. I guess you guys were right about that. Oh, and then what else have we been right about? And that maybe you'll see the results really soon when it happens to you, and you figure out what you might have put in your body. But nobody takes accountability for the things that they say or do, and certainly nobody looks back and reflects and says, oh wow, the government really. They just go, oh well, they're doing it to help. Because, now instead of just saying, oh wow, the government's actually doing that, they just go, oh, they're probably doing it to help. And for good purposes, because that's what naive, weak people do. That's why I always emphasize, we have such a weak society. They keep making them weaker. They keep making them more dependent on Big Brother. And these people they will never accept negativity because they can't accept negativity. They can't accept conflict or confrontation because they're weak. That's why I say about bullying. People cry about bullying. Who cares about bullying? I was bullied. Bullies have been bullied, right? You need that in life. It makes you stronger. People just want to be protected and cower away and cry. So when things like this even occur, even though they're not, correlated technically with each other as far as being bullied, people just automatically, because they're so weak and just pathetic, they don't think that the government would do stuff like this because they don't want to believe that, because it's scary and it's, they want to think everything's good and everything's just wonderful and live in fantasy land. And soon enough they will when they get into the metaverse. But this is what's going on in Las Vegas. People are finding the black droplets, like I showed you. Hey, people in Las Vegas, if you got a load of this video, why don't you try holding magnets up to it and see what happens? Right? Why don't you ask your government what's happening, since we already know that they have this type of technology and they admit to using it. I don't think the clouds suddenly had a Chipotle and are taking black rain cloud dumps, okay, and it's raining black goo from the sky as a coincidence. In the history of the world, there hasn't been black rain on a, they're saying for weeks this has been going on. I mean, hi, you think something might be up? Yeah, I think so. Let's wake up, society. You got black goo featured in every movie possible. I've covered even the boringest of movies just to show you the consistency that they're using in the repetition. From Moonfall to you name it, just a black goo, black goo, black goo. And that's the graphene oxide. They worship this. This is going to be involved in the rebuilding of the Tower of Babel, which they will attempt to do. They've already talked about elevators, using graphene as an elevator to the sky. Right? That's the video I'll do separately to talk more about it. But if you haven't heard, they're talking about building an elevator to the sky so people can, go to other planets or whatever crazy thing they tell them that these people believe. But this is their way of trying to recreate the Tower of Babel. And like I said recently, that somebody pointed out to me, in the Bible, it talks about them using tar in the construction of the Tower of Babel. Very interesting, because tar looks a heck of a lot like graphene. So this is what's going on in the world, folks. We have raining graphene in Las Vegas. It's raining men in San Francisco. I'm kidding. But, the stuff that we've all talked about for years and years is just continuing to happen, and we have such a dumbed-down society that they just go, my car's getting dirty. Oh no, my car's getting dirty. Yeah, you should probably not care about your car getting dirty and be, more concerned about what's really happening and what they're trying to do. I remind everyone, check out the website at callforuprising.com. It's $2.99 a month. Check them out. If you haven't, I want to thank everyone for being here. I appreciate the support greatly, and I thank all of you again. God bless you and your families.